A king in the rebellion. The darkness of the peacock throne. The capital of the kingdom of Babylon sparkled with the light of lamps even at night, but beneath this brilliance, the mud houses and narrow alleys were engulfed in the darkness of hunger and fear. The high walls of the palace oozed gold, while the children of the subjects starved for a single grain of food. The ruler of this kingdom was King Dara, a cruel and narcissistic man. He believed that luxury was the exclusive right of kings and that the subjects were born only to pay taxes and perform forced labor. Greater than, if the bellies of the subjects are full, rebellion breeds in their minds. Give them only enough to stay alive, King Dara would often tell his prime minister, Khusro. Greater than, a grand gathering of dance and music was underway in the vast court of the palace. King Dara, holding a goblet of wine, was seated on his throne when Khusro entered the court in a state of distress. Shadow of God, the news from the borders is not good. The farmers have refused to pay the new agricultural taxes, Khusro pleaded, bowing low. King Dara burst into a loud laugh, making the gold necklaces around his neck gleam. Refusal. An ordinary peasant dares to do this. Khusro, send your soldiers. Whoever refuses to pay the tax, behead them and hang their head at the door of their house. Fear is the true power of my government. From a spark to a flame. The royal army executed the king's command. Villages after villages were burned, and neither the elderly nor children were spared. But when oppression reaches its limit, it meets its demise. From the ashes of this cruelty, a hero was born, whose name was Sikandar. Sikandar was once a brilliant and loyal commander of the royal army. However, when he witnessed the massacre of innocent citizens with his own eyes, his conscience awakened. He decided to raise his sword not to protect the king, but to defend the people. One dark night, in an old cave located on the outskirts of the city, Sikandar gathered a few loyal companions and rebel leaders. The secret meeting of the rebels. Leaders name, former status, position, role in the rebellion. Sikandar, former royal commander, central leader and military strategist. Farid, blacksmith, weapon manufacturing and supply. Zara, former palace maid, inside intelligence and espionage. Friends. Sikandar addressed his companions by the light of a burning torch in the cave. How long will we endure this tyranny? King Dara is dishonoring our mothers and sisters, and snatching the morsels from our children's mouths. Silence now is a sin. We must fight, but brother Sikandar, we have neither a large army nor modern weapons. How will we face the king's army of hundreds of thousands? An old farmer asked in despair. Sikandar drove his sword into the ground and said, our strength is not weapons but our unity. The king's army fights for money, but we fight for our rights and freedom. When the public stands up, even the grandest throne shatters like a house of cards. The outbreak of the rebellion. Over the next few months, Sikandar silently prepared a massive public army. Zara stayed inside the palace and conveyed all information regarding the movements of the royal army to the rebels. The formal beginning of the rebellion occurred when King Dara enacted a new law, under which every poor family had to deposit 80% of their earnings into the royal treasury. The patience of the people had run out. One morning, as the royal herald announced this law in the central market of the capital, a stone flew from the crowd and struck him directly on the head. This was the first stone that shattered the idol of fear. The air echoed with the chants of, long live the revolution, down with King Dara. Thousands of unarmed people took to the streets. Sikandar appeared on his horse, sword in hand, and took command of the masses. The rebels attacked the royal grain granaries and distributed the food among the poor. The battlefield and the ultimate fate. When this news reached King Dara, he lost his mind with rage. He ordered his entire army to crush the rebels. Outside the capital, both armies came face to face in a vast plain. On one side was King Dara's armored army, elephants, and horses, and on the other side were ordinary people, farmers, and laborers led by Sikandar, holding axes, sickles, and clubs. The battle began. The royal army, using its raw power, started pushing the rebels back, but Sikandar's military strategy was brilliant. He had divided his army into 3 parts and lured the royal army into a narrow valley where their horses and elephants became useless. Battle assessment. Royal army's weakness: inability to maneuver in narrow spaces due to heavy armor and weapons. Rebels' strength: light weapons, high speed, and a do-or-die spirit. After hours of bloody warfare, the morale of the royal army broke. In the face of the farmers' passion, the mercenary soldiers began to flee. Fighting his way through, Sikandar reached directly to King Dara's elephant. Making a powerful leap, he pulled King Dara down to the ground. King Dara, who once never set foot on the bare earth, was now covered in dust and trembling with fear. "Forgive me, Sikandar. I will give you half the kingdom," the king begged. Sikandar looked at him with utter contempt and said in a booming voice. "Greater than, Dara, this kingdom was neither yours nor mine. It belongs to the people whose blood you sucked. The scales of justice shall be balanced today. Greater than." With a single strike, Sikandar severed the tyrannical king's head from his body. A new dawn. With the end of King Dara, the dark era of tyranny in the kingdom of Babylon came to a close. The gates of the palace were thrown open to the public. The people wanted to crown Sikandar as the new king, but Sikandar refused to sit on the throne. Instead, he established a council in Babylon that included farmers, laborers, and intellectuals so that the country's system could be run on the principles of justice and equality. Songs of joy were now sung in the streets of Babylon instead of cries of fear, and this tale became immortalized in the pages of history. When a king oppresses his subjects, the storm of rebellion grinds him into the dust.